Okay, let's get into the rest of the NFC, and we'll start in the NFC South. Big questions for some bad teams. Tampa Bay, Sully.
Yeah, my question here is one that I think is going a little bit underrated in this division is does the offense dip without Dave Canales, who obviously left their former offensive coordinator for a head coaching gig. They now brought in new OC Liam Cohn from the Rams. This is the third year in a row that they're going with a new offensive coordinator. They were totally fine last year, but they were bringing in Baker Mayfield, going from Brady to Mayfield. This is going year two with Baker with another offensive coordinator. And he's been around the league a bunch, and you're getting somebody from the Sean McVay tree, but you had a little magic there last year in that offense. It was really rejuvenating Baker Mayfield as a player, and clearly they wanted to bring him back. But I have a little bit of those concerns of, does this offense at all go through some speed bumps with a new leader?
Yeah, I mean, those are valid concerns. We talk about all the time what are the most underrated changes that adversely affect the team come at coordinator. I mean, Brinson, you harped all last season about how the Eagles were losing both their coordinators and that you didn't like that at all. And look, Eagles fell apart down the stretch. That may or may not have anything to do with the coordinator.
Didn't look right for a long time there, but then it turned out to be correct. Yes,
exactly. So it is just one of those things where, and this is a big, big jump you're making. I mean, going from Dave Canales to Liam Cohen they're different philosophy guys. And so I do like that Cohen, as you mentioned, Sully, comes from the Sean McVay tree here. He spent a lot of time with the Rams.
Well, I mean, Baker Mayfield played with Liam Cohen as his associate.
Right.
They have history together. So I don't think it's like
it's not a total change, but still, it's a change.
It's a change, yeah, for sure.
Right,
yeah.
but that's the thing is, and when you're Sean McVay's offensive coordinator, you're running Sean McVay's offense. You're like just existing because Sean McVay's doing the heavy lifting. But if you take a lot of what you learn from him and develop your own scheme, and I'm sure you can talk to Baker Mayfield now. You can say, hey, this is what we did with the Rams. What did you like? What did you think of McVay? Let's put some of this in this offense. So I think it can work, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it works. But I think Mayfield might actually like this offense more than what he did with Canales.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. But we can sort of loop in the Panthers here and go with the Panthers next. But the Dave Canales thing is fascinating. Is he, this is a guy who was an OC for 1 year. Like, he was a passing game coordinator in Seattle, and Gino had great success. But I mean, the track record that that you got with this guy, who you're giving just a disastrous franchise and a disastrous offense, and a team that should have had the number one pick this year because they were the worst team in football, and a second-year quarterback in Bryce Young. Sully, the Dave Canales thing, if Dave Canales is an incredible coach, the Panthers could be like a lot better than people think, and the Bucs might dip down a lot. But I tend to think it's probably a little bit overrated. I think he's got to be kind of an unknown just because of like his track record in the NFL.
And I think that leads into what we're talking about with the Panthers here. And the question is just very simple. Will Bryce Young rebound from year two? We mentioned it earlier. The goal for the Panthers in 2024 is to come out of 2024 fully convinced that Bryce Young's your starting quarterback. I do not care about the record. I only care about that one thought. If you can go into the next offseason and confidently say we are not in the quarterback market, that's a total win. And so that's the big question. Can he rebound off of a year that was so, if not bad?
Yeah, and you look at the Panthers, man, the one thing, look, I know the NFL's built on parity, but if I could bet all my money on one team not winning the Super Bowl in 2024, it would be the Panthers. This is just one team I don't have any faith in. And again, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's all going to come down to whether or not Dave Canales can help develop Bryce Young and kind of push him along more. And he's got to rebound for this team to rebound. This offense has to look good. And we know they added some weapons at receiver, but, I just didn't see a lot from this offense that's encouraging. I'm not sure how good this team can be, but they play in the NFC South. I think that's the one thing you keep telling yourself if you're a Panthers fan, if you're Canales, is this is a winnable division. We don't have to be great to win it. We just have to be average. We can be average. So, yeah, I do think it's be interesting to see what the Panthers do.
What do you think the Panthers' odds are to make the playoffs?
Oh, that's got to be it's not 15-1, 20-1,
No, not that high.
25-1?
Not that high.
Okay.
Not
Plus
that high.
350.
8-1.
Oh,
That's the second highest number amongst every team in the NFL. Can you guess who's the only team that's higher?
what team is really, 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 really bad? Patriots?
That is correct. It is the Patriots. Patriots are plus 950. I was enjoying Sully's like
I was going to say
thinking
Broncos.
Broncos are the third highest, I think.
I was sitting there staring at Sully's banners in the background.
I know. I was trying to say anything. Sully's like,
where have we gone?
It's like world time. Yeah, I know.
Oh, no.
The worst. The lowest expectations of any team in the NFL. Congratulations, Patriots. Yeah, I mean, look, to me, it is a little early to write off Bryce Young completely. And I understand that people do, draft hot take people like Prisco, Ryan Wilson. Wilson was to bury Trevor Lawrence. Pete's like, maybe Bryce Young just sucks. It's like, he doesn't suck. Like, he might not be, worthy of a number one pick. But we've seen plenty of situations in the past. Alex Smith comes to mind quickly when you think about a number one overall pick who struggled, and then you get better coaching around him. The issue I have is that I like Frank Reich was a good coach. I mean, like, not with the Panthers, but he was a good NFL head coach. He had all of those different. I think they just had too many voices in that room, and I hope that they're sort of letting Dave Canales just be a coach in this spot. And if that's the case, and he is a good coach, then I think Bryce Young could rebound. Totally up in the air as to whether or not Bryce Young will be a good NFL player, but I think it's way too early to write him off. The New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, this one's a specific player, and it's very simple. Does Ryan Ramczyk ever play again? Because it feels like the answer to that is no. He's obviously coming off of another knee surgery, and even back in March, Dennis Allen said, and I have the quote in front of me, Ramczyk is just isn't quite where I was probably hoping he'd be, which is not what you want to hear your head coach say about a player who's already has so much injury history. So I do wonder if we get to training camp and we're hearing about a possible retirement.
Yeah, I don't think that will be surprising at all. And that's huge because you're talking about a guy who, has basically been entrenched as a starter since his rookie year. He's been with the Saints for 7 seasons. And now if you're the Saints, you're on the lookout for you need a new right tackle, and you already watched a season where your quarterback kind of had the jitters. We saw Derek Carr struggles anytime he gets under pressure. And when you're trying to break in a new right tackle, that is not what you want at all. So, yeah, it's a sad situation with what he's dealing with. And by all accounts, it seems like he probably will not play in 2024 and may not play again. So this is a rough one for Ramczyk and the Saints.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point. By the way, remember that 2017 draft, they had two first-round picks. They came out of it with Marshawn Lattimore. They grabbed Ryan Ramczyk in the first round. They grabbed Alvin Kamara in the third round. They picked up Marcus Williams in the fourth or fifth round, I think. They just had an incredible draft. They'd gone 7-9, 3 straight years.
Brent said they took Trey Hendrickson in that draft, who is now on the Bengals crushing people. That was an insane draft.
It's one of the all-time great drafts, and it immediately flipped that franchise around. Like Sean Payton the way that the Sean Payton and the Drew Brees run ended, where they've had these just broken, like heart-ripping losses in the playoffs. Like, they made all these deep runs because of that 2017 draft class. They'd gone 7-9, 3 straight years. They were a bad football team. They were just Drew Brees was piling up stats, and they weren't winning a ton of games. Ramczyk was part of that, and I really don't think you can overstate how important it is that they hit on Talisi Fuiaga, because Trevor Penning ain't it. And if they're going to move him to right tackle, you would assume that is a lot of question marks at the tackle position for a quarterback, as Breach points out, that gets like a little dicey when the pressure gets cranked up. All right,
and you mentioned the close playoff losses of the 2017 class. You had an overtime loss to the Vikings. You had the pass interference no call against the Rams NFC title game, and then the Minneapolis Miracle, all happening in consecutive seasons. That is
insane.
How are Saints fans?
When you have multiple consecutive playoff losses that have like famous nicknames, like the Minneapolis Miracle, and then followed by the pass interference play. The 1 year where pass interference is repeatable and they don't anyway. Atlanta Falcons, Sully. Pretty obvious here, right?
Yeah, is will the Cousins Penix saga ruin their season? I mean, we know day one of training camp, the question is going to be who had a better day, Penix or Cousins? It's the only question that's going to be asked, and it's going to be asked every single day throughout camp. And then when you get to the end of camp, someone's going to say Penix had a better camp than Cousins. Someone's going to write the article that says he should be the week one starter. And it's just going to be a theme throughout the year. Is this organization with a new head coach able to handle that type of volatile situation, or do they crumble?
And you know what's going to make that worse is when they play a team like the Steelers in week one and TJ Watt sacks Kirk Cousins 5 times. Cousins throws 3 interceptions, and everybody's like, well, if Penix would have been out there, we could have won that game. And so anytime Cousins plays, I assume Cousins is going to be the week one starter because that's all the Falcons have said. And so anytime he struggles at any point, everybody's going to be calling for Penix. So you're just you're brewing the controversy yourself. It's really insane what the Falcons are doing. And they play so many teams that have they face the Raiders and Max Crosby. They face the Chargers and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And so you're just facing all these teams that could just destroy Kirk Cousins, and you're going to have fans screaming for Penix. So this is just, we've already said this is a bizarre situation. And the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, it just gets more bizarre.
Yeah, look, I mean, if the real concern too is like, what if Cousins isn't ready by training camp and Penix looks awesome? I mean, could you let it be the expensive, the really, 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 really expensive version of Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson, where you say, all right, we invested a first round pick in this guy, and Kirk is our starter, but Penix looks better. And if you go that route, you can't. It's hard to walk it back. And just I mean, I don't feel bad for Kirk Cousins, but I do feel a little bad for him just because it's like he would have stayed in Minnesota. Hey, let stay in Minnesota. Let Minnesota draft a quarterback and just play for Minnesota, and then do the same thing somewhere else. I think, or at least would have explored other opportunities. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm fascinated by this saga as